wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation of supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
For Mike Brown. I'm sick of writing this poem, but bring the boy. His new name, his same old body, ordinary black dead thing, bring him. And we will mourn until we forget what we are mourning. And isn't that what being black is about? Not the joy of it, but the feeling when you're looking at your child, turn your head, then poof, no more child. That feeling, that's black. Think, once a white girl was kidnapped and that's the Trojan War. Later, up the block, Troy got shot and that was Tuesday. Are we not worthy of a city of ash, of 1,000 ships launched because we are missed? I demand a war to bring the black boy back no matter what his name is this time. I at least demand a song. A song will do. Or a head.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, folks, good to see you. It's Thursday, February 25. How about it? This is the Bill Press Show, of course, and we welcome you to the program and look forward to hearing from you as we run through the issues of the day, the big topics of the day, the news of the day. We want to hear from you as to what it all means from you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Big debate tonight in Houston on CNN among the 5 remaining Republican candidates. Of course, the big battle will be Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio trying to bring Donald Trump down, or maybe it'll be Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio trying to bring each other down. It's the last debate before Super Tuesday, where Donald Trump is expected to run the board, except for Texas, where Ted Cruz holds a double-digit lead over Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders, meanwhile, yesterday in Kansas City and then in Oklahoma City, looking forward again toward Super Tuesday, Oklahoma City. He had 6,900 people in a big hall there and then went outside. There were 2,000 people who could not get in, and Bernie gave a second speech to the people waiting outside. Oklahoma looking good for Bernie. Hillary Clinton staying in South Carolina to build up her lead, as she's expected, of course, to win in South Carolina. Bernie has hardly contested that state. Marco Rubio, meanwhile, starting to pick up some endorsements, including endorsement yesterday of Mitt Romney, who turned around and demanded that Donald Trump release his tax returns because he said he thinks there could be bombshells in Donald Trump's tax returns. I'd have to say, Mitt Romney, the last person to demand that Donald Trump release his tax returns after, as you recall, Mitt Romney refused to release his tax returns in 2012. What a hypocrite. You see, lots to talk about, so it's good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land. Only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Good morning. Hello, 14 hours, 23 minutes, and 57 seconds before the next Republican debate. I think this is number 10. I've lost count, and I can't remember how many candidates are going to be on the stage. I think there are 5 left.
Who can even tell anymore?
If Ben Carson shows up. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Thursday, a big Thursday, February 25. How about it? It's the Bill Press Show. We are so glad to see you today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Bill Press Show, on your radio and on television, on your radio and your local progressive talk radio station. So excited to see you. And on television on Free Speech TV. How about it? You're looking good today. And I see you are ready for a big show. A big shoe, as Ed Sullivan used to say. With all of the
big shoe.
With all of the news here from Washington, D.C., from around the country, from around the globe, from South Carolina, from Oklahoma, South Carolina, where Hillary was stumping yesterday, Kansas City and Oklahoma City, where Bernie Sanders was looking ahead toward Super Tuesday, and down in Virginia, Donald Trump with Pat Robertson. Man, he was picking up some tips about how to run for president from the Reverend Pat, who probably had some other things to say about, how God was going to punish Disneyland for the gay pride parade.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you which minority God is going to spite now.
Yeah, right. God knows what crazy things he said.
The two of those guys in a room.
Man, I'd love
to
fly on the wall for that one.
Oh, man.
How about it? The Bill Press Show, and we want to hear from you, of course. 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. Your comments welcome on Twitter at BP Show, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Join me in saying hello to Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson on a Thursday morning.
Here we go.
Hey, good morning.
All right. Ray Rogers. She can't say hello because she's busy answering your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Give us a call. And Cyprian Bolding. Can't say hello to him either because we don't give him a microphone. We don't trust him.
There's a good reason for that.
There's a good reason for that. We tried it once and
yeah, it was not good.
Bad. Yeah. How much? What was that?
The FCC, we're still paying off the fine. We're still paying
off the fine, right?
It's still bad.
The lights just went out.
Yeah. Gotta have him, but man, alive.
Oh, there it is. How about it? So, Marco Rubio, he's still running around acting like a winner, even though he has yet to win a primary. At least Ted Cruz, crazy as he is, he's won one, right? Marco Rubio won none. And Stephen Colbert had some fun with that last night, saying Marco Rubio, he's just not, let's put it this way, he's not your first pick.
But establishment Republicans aren't just relying on money, they're also relying on Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
A man who doesn't mind telling you he was not your first choice.
I wasn't their first choice, and in the case of some of these folks, I wasn't even their second choice, and many of them didn't want me to run. Now they realize this is what the race is. These are the finalists.
We're running out of time. This is no time for patience. People have now realized, look, all right, he wasn't our first choice, but now he's our best choice.
He's just saying the election's not getting any younger and America needs to settle. He might not be the president of your dreams, but you'll learn to love him. It's all summed up in his powerful new campaign slogan, Marco Rubio. Oh, you're such a catch?
Yeah, it's like the girl that waited and waited to get married, and she finally just had to go with this schlump that she'd known all along, but she didn't really like. But what the hell?
That's Marco Rubio's sweet spot.
She was running out of time, right?
I mean, that is a bad campaign strategy.
Yeah, to go around saying, I know I'm not your first choice.
I know you didn't want me.
I know you don't want me.
But trust me, I'll be fine.
Yeah, right. But I'm better than that guy.
I'm better than that guy. Yeah, right.
All right. Yeah, we'll see. We can't wait to see that bumper sticker, indeed. Right. Lots going on here. We've got Susan Page, of course, Jake from USA Today, Jake Tapper from CNN, Congressman David Cicilline from Rhode Island, and John Nichols from The Nation magazine. They're just part of our lineup of guests today. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. A new survey by Smart Asset took a look at which 10 cities had the best public transportation system. Anybody want to guess what number one is?
U.S. cities?
U.S. cities. Washington. Jamie, any guesses?
I already know the answer. New York.
No, number one is, Bill, you're right. Washington, D.C. is
our
number
metro,
one. Our metro system shockingly comes in first over San Francisco, which is second place.
If I thought about it, I would have said San Francisco.
San Francisco's got a pretty good public transportation system. Yeah. Washington, D.C., though, comes out on top. It's based on average commute times, percentage of the population using transit, total population using transit, and the relative income of transit users to the general population. Also on the list, number 3 is Boston, Massachusetts. Number 4 is Chicago, Illinois. Number 5 is New York. Oakland also on the list at number 10. There you go.
Yeah, I would
think public transport. I would have thought San Francisco was number one.
I'm surprised Washington beat San Francisco, and I do love the metro, and the bus system here is very, very good. But we don't have all the different forms of transportation that the Bay Area has.
Yeah,
where they
right.
got the BART, they got the trolleys, they got the bus, they got everything. And by the way, I'm even surprised I said Washington. After last week, I came home from Amtrak, from CNN in New York. After Amtrak, jumped on the subway to come home, and they were doing track work, and it was a 27-minute wait for the next train. So I got out and got in the cab. I knew I'd be home.
You'd be home in half that time.
Yeah.
I've had a frustrating few weeks on Metro over the past couple weeks.
You know what? Metro, right now, on the weekends, stay away.
Here's the thing.
Weekends, stay away.
Metro's slogan should be, when we're good.
During the week?
When we're good, we're great.
Yeah.
When we're not good, we're really, really bad. And I think that's the best way to sum up Metro. Boy, this story is absolutely terrifying. There is a new strain of super lice. Lice. It's affecting 25 different states, including right here in Maryland and Virginia. This lice is resistant to over-the-counter treatments that parents normally get to treat lice.
Right.
So there is a treatment for it. It's a whole, you got to go into a doctor. What they do is they use heated air to dehydrate the lice and eggs in a single treatment, and then they basically brush it all out to get it all out in one fell swoop. That is $170 is what it usually costs to get rid of it, which, is a lot more than just getting the over-counter lice treatment. I personally am terrified of lice. It scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, so, I'm scared of bats, but
I know. So stay away
getting
from bats.
Getting bats out of your hair is tough too.
They nest in there.
It's a common thing.
They build a nest.
You can't use the over-the-counter treatment on that.
Bruce Springsteen has done a lot of concerts in a lot of different cities, but every now and then he slips up. He was playing at the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio on Tuesday night when he said, "Party noises here in Pittsburgh." It's a very real Spinal Tap moment. He quickly corrected himself and said, and Cleveland, too. The crowd, they rolled with it. They didn't get too upset at him because, he does spend a lot of time on the road. And he said afterwards he never done that before in all of his years of touring. He'd never done that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it
happens.
No, I'm sure people can get mixed up about.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Artists, athlets.
Yeah, sure.
Is he scheduled like that?
Well,
Sometimes
it's happened to candidates too. There's some famous,
that's right.
Yeah. There's some famous times I can't remember where people have come up with the wrong city.
When your life is on the road, I can't even imagine. You'd have no idea where you're waking up. Yeah. Shout out Cleveland.
Hey, shout out to Cleveland. Yes, indeed. All right. So things got really kind of crazy yesterday on the campaign trail. I wanted to talk about that with you. First of all, reality is starting to sink in here on Capitol Hill. Members of Congress have Republicans in Congress have tried to ignore Donald Trump so far because they just couldn't believe it was happening. And they thought if they just didn't say anything, he would just go away. He has not gone away, of course, right? He has now won 3 in a row. It looks like he's going to sweep the deck, except for Texas, which will probably go to Ted Cruz on Tuesday. And so they're starting to wake up and say, holy crap, Donald Trump could be our nominee. And maybe we better take another look at him. And yesterday, 2 Republican members of Congress actually jumped on the Trump bandwagon. Chris Collins from New York and Duncan Hunter from from California. Sorry, he's from San Diego, actually. So those are the first 2 congressional endorsements for Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio has racked up the most endorsements. Most of the establishment people are going with Marco Rubio, and a lot of them fell into place on Tuesday. And we talked about some of them yesterday morning. Senator Dean Heller, Governor Asa Hutchinson from Arkansas, Senator Orrin Hatch. All in all, there were some 20, I think, Republican poobahs who decided that they were going to endorse Marco Rubio because they see him as the answer to Donald Trump or the alternative to Donald Trump. It is probably for Marco Rubio too little too late, and those Republicans waited too long, I think, to derail Donald Trump. But Rubio got another endorsement yesterday, which is kind of, do you really want this guy? Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney came out not just saying he thought Rubio would be the best guy, but attacking Donald Trump. And on what grounds would Mitt Romney attack Donald Trump? Believe it or not, he attacked Donald Trump for not releasing his tax returns, demanding that Donald Trump do so. Here's what he told Neil Cavuto on Fox Business yesterday.
Frankly, I think we have good reason to believe that there's a bombshell in Donald Trump's taxes.
What do you mean?
Well, I think there's something there. Either he's not anywhere near as wealthy as he says he is, or he hasn't been paying the kind of taxes we would expect him to pay, or perhaps he hasn't been giving money to the vets or to the disabled like he's been telling us he's been doing.
He didn't give as much money to charity, may not be as wealthy as he says he is. Maybe some big tax loopholes there we don't know about. This is Mitt Romney again, folks, saying this. And Mitt Romney says, well, Donald says his tax returns are beautiful.
First time he was asked about his taxes on the Today Show, he said, they're beautiful. All right, they're big and they're beautiful. Well, great. Let us see him. He likes to tell people how well he's done. Why isn't he willing to let us look at the tax returns? And that's something. This was an issue in my campaign. That's why I'm so sensitive to it.
Yeah. This was
really?
Whoa.
Like we didn't remember?
This was an issue in his campaign. You know what? I frankly had kind of forgotten about that until I heard that Mitt Romney was attacking Donald Trump for not releasing his tax returns, and suddenly it all came back to me. This was the huge issue. Remember, this may be going too far, but Mitt Romney might have won that election if it weren't for his refusing to release his tax returns. Don't you recall? He released, so this is 2012. He released his returns for 2010, and I think his expected return for 2011. But then he refused to release any other returns. And everybody not everybody, but there's a lot of pressure on him to do so from fellow Republicans, and he refused to do so, even though, as a lot of people pointed out, and the media certainly pointed out, his father, when he ran for office, George Romney, released tax returns for 12 years. And Romney, stubborn, refused until the very end to release them, to the point where, remember, we were all talking about he must have money stashed away in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
He must have written off every one of those 50 cars he owns or something in his garage in La Jolla. I mean, he took advantage of every possible tax loophole, maybe even cheated on his taxes, maybe didn't give away as much. This is what they were saying about Romney. Didn't give away as much money as he said because he's the Mormon and he was bragging about how much money he gives away. And also, Harry Reid even suggested at the time that somebody told him the reason he wouldn't release his tax returns is because he had not paid any taxes at all. He had paid no taxes for 10 years, and yet Mitt still refused to release his tax returns. And now he is turning around. Marco Rubio really wants Mitt Romney to be the one to raise the issue about Donald Trump's tax returns? This is insane.
That's what I find so beautiful about this, right? Is because it's clear that the Republicans know, or the establishment knows, they've got to take down Trump somehow. Yeah. That's their goal here. And so to put the attack dog out to try and bring Trump down on the issue of his tax returns,
Mitt Romney,
which could actually be an issue, by the way, his tax returns could be a very real issue.
Yes.
But their best guy, the best guy they got,
is Mitt Romney the guy to do it? You know, I've been in a lot of campaigns, right? You got a good nugget like that, you got to get it out there. Okay, who's the best guy to get it out there?
Yeah.
Look around, okay? Maybe. Okay.
It's part of the game.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I don't know who the best guy is. It ain't Mitt Romney.
I know who the best guy ain't. They got him.
You got it. 866-55-PRESS. What do you think? Mittens is back. Oh my God! Yeah, Mittens is back, and he screwed up on day one. I don't think he did Marco Rubio any favors. Yeah, and boy, what a big opening for Donald Trump. When we come back, we'll hear what Donald Trump says about Mittens. 866-55-PRESS.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Today, in this country, we are having a conversation about police violence, the killing of black men, and what all that means. It is sad that this is happening and that every day there's a new incident to cause us to keep thinking about it and talking about it. But it is extraordinary that the American people are having to deal with this every day, whether you're watching CNN or MSNBC, Fox, or ABC News. All the news channels are talking about police violence and what does that mean against black people. Many people probably look at that, certainly have looked at it in the past, and they have said that these poor black men are doing bad things, and that's why they are ending up in confrontations with police without any understanding of their lives of these poor black young men. Part of what has been going on for decades is that poor black people live in communities that suffer from hyper surveillance of the police. The police are more likely to be in their communities. The police are more likely to arrest them. The police are more likely to stop them even if they're not doing anything. And that is what is so hard for the American people to believe, that you would get stopped and searched and arrested by the police and not doing anything. But this is starting to come out as people are telling the stories over and over again. But this has been the condition, this hyper surveillance by police, making it more likely for people to get a record, to be known by the police, and then once they get in the system, it is almost impossible to get out because of the whole system of being on parole and missing an appointment or fraternizing with a person who has a criminal record, getting you right back in the jail, and then going back again and again and again. This is coming to be seen by the American people in a way that it has never been seen before. But why are people in these communities in the first place? That's getting peeled away. People are there because of housing discrimination. They are there because this is the only place where affordable housing can be found. They are there because that's where their families live, and people are drawn to being in communities where they are comfortable. The combination keeps people in these low-income communities where they are an easy target for hyper-surveillance and then everything that comes from it. And so as we think about these issues, we have to understand that while you as an individual in this society, as a white individual, you may not carry personal racism, but that does not keep the system from operating in a racist way.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You got it. 26 minutes after the hour, Mitt Romney, of all people, going after Donald Trump, demanding that Donald Trump release his tax returns. Is this the right agent?
It sounds like they set up to a joke.
I know, it does. Right. Yeah. I mean, Marco Rubio's young, but he wasn't in grade school 4 years ago, right? I mean, he should remember Mitt Romney's tax problems. And again, he stubbornly kept that position, even though he knew it was hurting him, and refused to release his returns all the way until the very, very bitter end. Well, Donald Trump on CNN last night with Anderson Cooper was asked, of course, about Mitt Romney, and he doesn't hold back.
Well, because my returns are extremely complex, and I'll make a determination at the right time. I'm in no rush to do it. Nobody's been bringing it up except for Mitt Romney, and the reason he brings it up is that he lost in the last election and lost very badly.
He's a loser. Yeah, he's a loser, right? I'd love to see Mitt Romney on stage with Donald Trump, by the way, debating it. But you know what?
But you know, by the way,
I think Mitt Romney may be right.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think it's an actual good point to bring up.
Oh,
Donald Trump's tax records. Can you even imagine?
As he said, they're very complicated. You know that
they're beautiful.
They're beautiful,
but they are complicated.
But they're very complicated. But you know, he has taken advantage of every trick in the book. Right?
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you one. Every one of those losing casinos, he took a tax write-off on all of them.
Guaranteed. He made money on that.
He made money, right? And you know what? We paid the freight, right? So I'd like to see what's in them. But no, Mitt Romney's not the guy. What do you think? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey.
We taught him how to hit a baseball.
Just like that. Say hi.
How to hit a receiver. The strike zone. The net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
Calls me googly eyes.
And you know you're beautiful, right? You know that?
Even you are beautiful. I got bullied for wearing glasses. Share if you're against bullying.
We put it out there, just took off. 3 million people have shared this post. Don't let bullies get you down. I stand with you. The whole family's wearing glasses. I wear glasses and I'm proud.
I even have the army on my team.
All the kind comments brought my child joy. I don't feel thank you is enough.
Thanks.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
How about it? 34 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed. Marco Rubio sort of showing I think he's not ready for prime time when, of all people, he picks Mitt Romney to go after Donald Trump on his tax returns. I can't wait for the day Donald Trump will probably play the old tapes of Mitt Romney explaining 4 years ago why he would not release his tax return.
That's the thing. There's so much of it. I mean, it's out there. This was a whole thing for the entire campaign.
I went back yesterday and reread some of the press stories about Mitt Romney and his tax returns. They are brutal at the time. And now he gets on his high horse against Donald Trump. Big mistake, I think. Out in Chicago on WCPT. Hello, Kevin. Thanks for checking in. What do you say? Hi.
Yeah. Hey, Bill. How's it going? Man, you know what? Talk about the teapot calling the kettle black. I mean, can you believe this?
No.
Hey, you know, Hey, Bill, I got this figured out. You see, Mittens, he so desperately wants to get back in political, limelight. So he went to the establishment and they said, what do I got to do? So it's like a frat house initiation. How big of a jackass are you willing to make of yourself? Here's what we want you to do. You go out and you challenge Donald Trump on his tax returns, because that's about the most ridiculous thing. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. And there we are.
I think you're right. I think Mitt is, that's an excellent analysis, Kevin. I think Mitt is really, he's desperate to be taken seriously again, right? He'll do anything.
He is exactly right. It's just like, I just want to be relevant. And he's probably looking back. He's like, are you kidding me? Is this guy here, Trump, is going to be the nominee? How come it wasn't so easy for me? It's just a joke. The whole Republican Party is a joke. And you know what? I really, as much as people, revile Trump, you almost want him to be the nominee, because when America gets a real good view at who this guy is, I'm from New York. I watched this guy for a long, long time. He's a fraud. He's just a sham. His bankruptcies, it's just a joke. Donald Trump is one big joke.
Well, I think we're going to see a lot more of him, because I do think, Kevin, he's going to be the nominee. And that's going to be the end of the Republican Party, as we know it, for sure.
Kevin brings up a really good point, right? Like, I hate to say this, but in some weird, sick, twisted way, I am kind of rooting to see Donald Trump be the nominee, because it shows just how screwed up the Republican Party is. And this is what they wanted. Right? Like, they didn't hide from Trump. They actively sought out Trump. Mitt Romney stopped his campaign and went to fly to go see Donald Trump and kiss the ring and pose for photos.
In Vegas.
Yeah. Made a big to-do, came out, went in front of the cameras, how pleased he was to get the endorsement.
Yes.
And now look, this is what you've got. You've got this clown.
Right. And not just in that way, but the Republican Party, the fact that they have nobody to blame but themselves for Donald Trump.
Right.
Because, he is, if you will, the Tea Party writ large. He's not a Tea Party guy, but what I mean is they refuse to stand up to the Tea Party. They refuse to stand up to Ted Cruz. They shut down the government. It was always these people anti-government, anti-Washington, anti-establishment. And the ultimate person who is anti-Washington, anti-establishment, anti-politics as usual is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And so now they're looking and saying, "Oh my God, what have we created?" Yeah. Well, a monster.
Yeah, totally.
And there he is. Donald Trump and Mitt Romney, what a pair. We'll hear more about that for sure. Meanwhile, wanted to jump into, before we talk to Susan Page from USA Today. We'll talk to her just here after the next break, as we do every Thursday. The Supreme Court really bubbling up, and again, I think more and more the Republicans digging in their heels and saying, we will not even give the courtesy of meeting with whomever President Obama might appoint to the Supreme Court. We're just going to totally ignore it for the next 11 months and do absolutely nothing. And by the way, let the next president name the person to fill that vacancy, which I also find funny, because what if the next president's Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, which I think it will be. Okay, no, it will be. Wait, but they're going to get somebody more liberal than Barack Obama would appoint.
Imagine if it's Bernie Sanders.
Oh, you kidding? Yeah, I'll be on the court.
Jesus.
You have to be a lawyer to be on the court.
Also, honestly, what's even worse? Imagine if it's their guy, Donald Trump. You imagine who they're going to put on the court?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So the whole strategy. First of all, it's obstructionist. It's obnoxious. It's bitterly partisan, and naked partisanship. But that's what they're doing. That's what they've chosen to do. Harry Reid yesterday really came out against. By the way, this is really Mitch McConnell, but Senator Grassley, who is chair of the Judiciary Committee from Iowa, who originally said, well, of course we'll give him the courtesy of a hearing. Right away, his chain got yanked, and now he has said, nope, no hearing, no vote, not even a meeting. Harry Reid yesterday really lashed out at Chuck Grassley.
Senator Grassley has surrendered every pretense of independence and let the Republican leader annex the Judiciary Committee into a narrow partisan mission of obstruction and gridlock.
And I thought Josh Earnest made a good point yesterday at our briefing, which is like, what the hell are they doing anyway? I mean, it's not like they don't have time for this because they're not doing anything else.
Right.
It's inconsistent with the expectations of the United States Constitution. I think it's also inconsistent with the expectations of the American people. The American people expect that the United States Senate will do their job. And right now you have members of the United States Senate suggesting that they're not going to do their job for the next 11 months.
Yeah, right. That's what they're saying. And by the way, they've said, we're not going to do our job on Gitmo. We won't even hold a hearing on that and about the president's plan. They're certainly not going to do anything on immigration reform. They're not going to do anything on climate change. They're not going to do anything on the Supreme Court. I mean, you pick the issue. They're not going to do anything. What the hell are we paying them for?
It's also, I think a lot of them need a lesson in what lame duck actually means, because it's this term that keeps getting thrown around. Obama's a lame duck president. No, he's not. That's not what a lame duck is. He's got a quarter of his presidency of his term left, right? You elect him to 4 years, they do 4 years, not 3 and then put everything on hold.
President Obama, in fact, yesterday spoke about this, and he made 2 points. One is the first one you just made, Peter. In fact, let's take that one first, Jamie, just in reverse order, where the president's saying, it's 4 years, not 3.
None of the founding fathers thought that when it comes to the president carrying out his duties, he should do it for 3 years, and then on the last year stop doing it.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's basically what they're saying.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to this paying them. I mean, what if you walked into your boss? Okay, I'm your boss. No.
Go on.
Okay, no. What if I'm talking to you out there, right? You walked into your boss today and said, by the way, I've decided I'm not going to do my job for the rest of the year. Now, you still have to pay me, but I'm just not going to do my job. How far would you get? That's what these senators are saying. We're their boss, and they're telling us we're not going to do our job.
Huh?
Yeah, still pay me $190,000 a year, but I'm not going to do anything except sit in my office and, I don't know, play solitaire, whatever. And the president also pointed out yesterday, let's let these people go home and explain to taxpayers why they're doing nothing.
I think it will be very difficult for Mr. McConnell to explain how, if the public concludes that this person is very well qualified, that the Senate should stand in the way simply for political reasons.
Yep. So, do you think the Republicans are going to be able to hold on? We'll pose that question to Susan Page. When we come back, Susan Page, USA Today. Coming up.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
A letter to the girl I used to be. Dear Emily, every time I watch baseball, a voice I no longer recognize whispers, Ethan, do you remember? When you were going to be the first girl to play in the Major League Seattle Mariners rally cap. But to be honest, Emily, I don't. Dad told me that like it was someone else's bedtime story. But I do know you had that drive. Didn't let anyone tell you to wear shorts above your knees. Didn't care if boys thought your hair fell on your shoulders just right, but with girls, Sleepovers meant the space between your shoulder and hers was a 6-inch fatal territory. The year you turned 11 was the first time you said out loud that you didn't want to live anymore. In therapy, you said you wouldn't make it to 21. On my 21st birthday, I thought about you. You were right. At 19, you started to fade. I tried to cross you out like a line in my memoir I wished I could erase completely. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the definition of death, but even though parts of you still exist, you are not here. Most of my friends have never heard your name until now. I've been trying to write this letter for 6 months. I still can't decide if it should be an apology or not. But now you will never hear Emily Smith announced at a college graduation. Get married. Give birth. When the prescribed testosterone started taking effect, my body stopped producing the potential for new life every month. I thought about your children, how I wanted them too. I let a doctor remove your breasts so that I could stand up straighter. Now, even if I somehow had those children, I wouldn't be able to nourish them. My body is obsolete, scarred cosmetic, but never C-section. I was 4 days late. They will never be grandparents. I was 1 week late. They will never hold their lover's sleeping figure. I was 11 days late. They will never breathe in a sunset and a sunrise in the same night. I was 2 weeks late. They will never learn to jump rope. I was 3 weeks late. They will never shout, "Watch, Mommy, watch me on the slide." I was 2 months late. A piece of us will never wrap their arms around our leg for comfort, but just to keep them from falling down. And I am sorry that this process is so slow, and all you can do is wonder if you ever had a place. You did. You still do. Don't forget that. Yours, Ethan. P.S. I never hated you.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 13 minutes before the top of the hour. How about it? This is Thursday, February 25. Good to have you with us today. Man, Peter, I got to tell you, I've been really busy this week. I've been putting in all kinds of extra hours responding to all the fan mail I got after appearing with Susan Page
I've seen some of the tweets.
on Capital Download last Sunday.
I've seen some of the tweets.
Indeed. Co-host of the Capital Download on WUSA 9 and Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today. Hello, Susan.
We were so glad to have you on.
It was fun. It always is. Thank you.
Did he get in any trouble with the FCC or anything like that, Susan?
Well, I can't talk about that.
Yeah, we have that problem here.
Yeah.
So, Susan, as you point out, Donald Trump does the impossible yet again, right?
Unbelievable. I mean, here's the question we all have. At what point is he actually unstoppable? And he's not quite there yet, but he is getting pretty close.
I would say, I really think he is.
You think he is already?
Yep. But I think that after Super Tuesday, everybody will have to agree.
Yeah. If he wins in every state or almost every state.
Every state but Texas.
Say every state but Texas. It's just, and here's the real problem. Not only will he be way ahead, but the things that traditionally knock out candidates do not seem to hurt him.
Yeah.
So it's not like he'll say something outrageous and then he'll be in trouble. He'll say something outrageous and it will build his support.
Yes, right, exactly. And, the only way to stop him, I think, would be, as we've all said, for either Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz to drop out. Ain't going to happen, right?
The only way to beat Donald Trump is for some stronger alternative to come up.
Yeah.
And not only are Cruz and Rubio, and to some degree John Kasich, dividing his opposition, it's not clear to me that any of them are a strong enough candidate in themselves to be a credible challengers to him. They haven't been so far.
No.
I mean, if Ted Cruz drops out, I don't think that's I don't think Marco Rubio rises at all. I think those Cruz voters, a lot of them will go to Donald Trump, and Marco Rubio has proven himself to be not the greatest campaigner so far.
I mean that he's amassing
a lot
endorsements.
Of yeah.
And you know how much endorsements matter this year?
Yeah.
I would say not
Zippo. No, exactly. So you must have been as amused as I was when, of all the people to attack Donald Trump for not releasing his tax returns, it's Mitt Romney? Do they think we have such a short memory, Susan?
Mitt Romney, well, he knows something about having problems with releasing your tax returns.
He sure does.
Because it took him a long time to do it last time. Also, here was this is the kind of thing I think must make Americans hate politics, right? He says there must be a bombshell in there,
right.
But it's not clear he has a clue
No.
what's in Donald Trump's tax return.
By the way, I think there are probably bombshells in there, but Mitt Romney has no idea.
But, if the bombshell is he didn't pay much in taxes, wouldn't most Americans say, hey, that's what I want to do, not pay so much in taxes?
Exactly. Right. They would. On another issue, this whole flap about the Supreme Court it's sort of more bizarre yesterday when the rumor started and was confirmed by the White House that the president, among candidates he's considering, is the Republican governor of Nevada, Brian Sandoval.
Don't you think this is the White House having a little fun?
I hope so.
Well, no, he is a Republican, possibly harder for the Senate to refuse to shake his hand when he comes up to meet them, which is what they've indicated they're going to do.
That would be fun.
On the other hand, he's pro-choice, and so probably unacceptable to Republicans anyway.
Well, as I told Peter when I first heard this yesterday, Susan, if the president nominates a Republican to the Supreme Court, I might write a book about how President Obama let progressives down.
Is your book a bestseller now? Because if so, you should send a check to Clinton for president because she has done you so much good.
I really should. Now, the other big story that hasn't gotten as much attention as I think it should, but Tim Cook did a great interview last night with David Muir on ABC News, and you have interviewed General Hayden about this whole Apple versus the FBI flap.
So all of us have smartphones on which our whole lives are contained, right?
Here's mine right alongside of me.
And the question is, do you have an expectation of some privacy there? Big showdown. And General Michael Hayden, who, as you know, is the only person ever to have headed both the NSA and the CIA, did an interview with us and said he sided with Apple on the broad question of whether there should be what they call a backdoor in digital devices, so law enforcement can use it to see what's on your phone.
That's unusual for him to do that.
I think so. He was the guy who put in place that metadata surveillance of all our phone calls, which he continues to defend. But he says this would make us less safe because he says the people who would be using that backdoor wouldn't just be the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. It would be foreign intelligence. It would be who knows who.
And, I think the FBI sort of has undone its own case in a certain sense by, originally they said, this is just one phone. One guy, one phone, Mr. Farouk out there in San Bernardino. But now it's like 11 phones, right? And Tim Cook told David Muir last night he's willing to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. But the public opinion seems to be against Apple.
Well, the FBI was smart to choose a case that involved a terrorist who had killed 14 Americans out in San Bernardino. So you could hardly have a less sympathetic character to be protecting his smartphone. But you know what I think might happen here? I think technology might trump law enforcement because they continue to make improvements and changes in the security protocols on these phones, and I'm just not sure that our political system will be able to keep up with those.
No, I think you're right, and also the more I think people understand that for the government to order a company, right, to develop a technology to undo its own system, I mean, talk about Big Brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, as some people point out, the people trying to sell us stuff already know everything about us. But that seems less threatening somehow than the government.
I know. That's how they get us to buy all their crap, right?
It's why when you look at something on the web, suddenly you see ads for it everywhere you go.
I know. They follow you around. It's freaky. It really is. Okay. Hey, Susan, so great to catch up on a lot of fronts here today. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Bill.
All right, have a great weekend.
You too.
Right, Susan Page, usatoday.com.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
So you're drowning in student debt, and it looks like there's no way out. Have you considered bankruptcy? Of course not. It's a dirty word, and everything you've heard says students can't file anyway. It didn't start that way. Bankruptcy laws were enacted in the 19th century to give people a fresh start. But not all debt is created equal. Take this, for example. We have you, your buddy Carlos, and your grandma Lucy. Carlos got laid off. His credit card debt was too much to handle, so he filed for bankruptcy. It will totally screw his credit, but at least he can start fresh, and after 10 years, his credit report should be fine. Grandma Lucy's home lost half its value. Now her mortgage isn't worth paying back. She says F it and decides to file for bankruptcy too. Then there's you. You didn't land that dream job, you're struggling to make ends meet, but the interest just keeps piling up. With a broken heart, you've written off the possibility of buying a home, having kids, and getting married because, hello, who wants to deal with your crazy baggage? But in reality, you want those things, and your education was supposed to get you there. Now you need a fresh start, just what bankruptcy was intended for. You try to file, like Carlos and Grandma Lucy, and that's when you realize it's not as easy for you as it was for them. In the 70s, Congress worried that students were using bankruptcy to abuse loan programs. That wasn't quite true. Still, over the years, Congress gradually stripped student debtors of their options. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978 was even called discriminatory toward students by the chairman of the subcommittee. Student debt was singled out and lumped with criminal debts. Today, if student debtors try filing for bankruptcy anyway, they'll need to prove their debt imposes an undue hardship. But who's to say what qualifies as an undue hardship? Even some judges have said they don't get it. This lack of clarity in the law could work in your favor. A Harvard researcher discovered in 2012 that few students actually try to discharge their loans through bankruptcy. Of the students who filed for bankruptcy to settle other debts, only 0.1% try the same tactic on their school debt. The craziest part? Just under half of them got their debts fully or partially discharged. In other words, you can file for bankruptcy on your student loans. Depending on your situation, it might just be a matter of trying. At least there's that.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Congressman David Cicilline from Rhode Island, top of the next hour.
Roll Tide!
Yeah? Oh.
No, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. This is a good story coming out of Alabama. Birmingham yesterday, the city council voted to almost immediately implement a new minimum wage in Birmingham of $10.10 an hour.
It's not enough.
It's not enough, but it's a step. They're the first city in the South, pretty much, to make this happen. We've seen a lot of cities do it around the country, but the South has been hesitant to do this. They had talked about this last year, and they were saying they were going to aim for the summer to get this done, but they pushed it ahead yesterday to make it happen. So it's going to move up. The increase is going to happen on March 1st, and then it's going to move up to $8.50 an hour on March 1st, and then by July it's going to be $10.10.
All right. And the only candidate to pay his workers the minimum wage of $15 an hour? Bernie Sanders.
Right.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, guys, I want to take the last part of the day to change our focus and talk a little bit about water. There's rivers, there's lakes, there's huge oceans. You get thirsty, you just go and you get some water, right? We rely on rain for our water. We even rely on snow. But what if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. I want you to tell your parents, your friends, your neighbors, how important it is to save water. It's up to you guys to save the planet. All right? What if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. It's up to you guys to save the planet.
Hi, I'm Mark LaFleur, and I produced the short film you just watched called Aquaforce. California is experiencing one of the worst droughts it's ever had, and now, more than ever, it's important for everyone to do their part to help conserve water. The reason I made this film is because I wanted to make something fun and informative that would get people talking about the California drought. Obviously, this is an important issue because we have a limited amount of clean drinking water. I think it was very important to let people know, especially young people, that this is an important resource, maybe our most important resource, and it's something that we can't take for granted and we certainly can't waste. I really wanted this to be something that children would respond to. The kind of thing that any kid anywhere in the world, no matter what language they speak, could understand the story and be entertained by it and leave it knowing that this is something important, that if they didn't already know about this, that it's now going to be a part of the way that they think about water, the way that they live life, and that it's something that they'll share with their friends. The fact that they watch this video once or twice and they immediately understand that water is important, that's it. That was the whole point of this thing, to get it into the conversation, to make it something that
kids are thinking about, talking about, that they're aware of, and that they know is important. This project was self-funded, so we relied on the support of our community to make it happen. It was pretty amazing to just have our neighbors, our friends, and our coworkers come together and volunteer their time and their homes and their kids to make this thing happen. Thanks for checking out the video. Keep the Aquaforce going, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed. Mitt Romney, of all people, coming out and demanding that Donald Trump release his tax returns. Last time I checked, aren't we still waiting for Mitt Romney to release his tax returns?
In 4 years.
Hey, what a bizarre twist yesterday. Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Thursday, February 25. So good to see you today. And thank you for jumping on board the bus as we head out from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. to reach you and to join you all over this great land of ours. Coast to coast, we're there with you on the radio, on your local progressive talk radio station, of course, and on one of those two great radio apps, TuneIn or iHeartRadio. And we're also there with you on television on Free Speech TV, DirecTV, and the Dish Network, looking at you coast to coast and worldwide on our video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. In other words, basically what we're saying is you can't escape us, we can't escape you, and we like it that way. Our entire team here today, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Here we go. Good
morning.
Hey, guys. Ray, right? Right, I got it right.
Yeah.
Ratchets on the phones. I'm sorry. A little brain fart there. Ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and our videographer, Cyprian Bolden, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Avery Freedman from CNN, the legal department, is going to join us at the half hour to talk about the latest flap over the Supreme Court. Jake Tapper from CNN in the next hour, as well as John Nichols from The Nation magazine. But we are delighted to start off this hour with a good friend of ours from the great state of Rhode Island, Congressman David Cicilline, joining us on our news line. Hey, Congressman, always good to have you on board. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. Good morning, Bill.
Let me ask you first about the this whole flap over the Supreme Court and the Republicans in the Senate saying they won't even give any nominee the courtesy of a meeting. And do you think can they get away with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the most galling example of the Republican leadership's refusal to respect and work with and honor not only this president, but their constitutional responsibilities. I mean, after Justice Scalia's death was announced, I don't even know that his body had been moved from the site where he died to the funeral home. It seemed like almost as quickly as that had happened, Mitch McConnell had issued a statement saying, don't bother nominating anybody. And I think it's not only completely irresponsible. I mean, obviously there's a vacancy on the court. The president not only has the right but the responsibility to name a successor, to appoint name a person to the court, and the Supreme Court has the Senate has the responsibility to consider that nomination, to provide the hearings and to provide reasonable consideration, and then they can vote either for or against the nominee, either confirm or not confirm. But the notion that they would say don't even bother nominating one, and that we will refuse to meet with the nominee of the president is I mean, it's not only offensive, it's basically saying to the American people, we intend not to do our constitutionally required duty. And it not only will have an impact on substance, because there are decisions which will then be decided or not decided by a 4-4 vote. The Supreme Court has many important issues before them. It is intended to have 9 justices. They have a responsibility to consider the presidential appointment. And this is what people hate about Washington. They announce it doesn't matter who you even nominate, because we've decided that you shouldn't have the right to nominate a justice because we would rather have a person that we hope will win the next time. It's outrageous. And they also said, Mitch McConnell said, well, the American people have a right to speak. Last time I checked, they did speak. When we reelected President Obama by the greatest number of votes ever in the history of our country. So it's an absurdity, and I think they're going to pay a political price if they actually don't take up the president's nomination.
Yeah, we did have that. We did have that election, right? The American people
they
did
probably
decide
missed that.
Who's going to Who's going to make the next appointment? It just boggles my mind. And Congressman, it's also like how many people are in this land, right, could walk into their boss's office and say, hey, we're not going to do our job, right? But you still have to pay us, but we're just not going to do our job for the next 11 months.
We're not going to do our job for a year, for 11 months, right?
Yeah. Right. I hope it turns around, but I don't think it depends. No matter whom the president nominates, some of these people are going to hold that position. Now, I've got to ask you, we saw a lot of people flocking to endorse Marco Rubio to hold off Donald Trump as a way of maybe stopping Donald Trump, and maybe too little, too late. What about the Democratic primary? Have you taken sides, Congressman?
Yes. I endorsed Secretary Clinton about a year ago. And it's interesting. I mean, I admire a lot Senator Sanders, and I admire a lot what he's saying, and I think he's speaking about very important issues, and I think he's making Secretary Clinton an even better candidate for the general election. But I'm certain about this, that Hillary Clinton is the person who can actually get this stuff done, and I think what we need is someone who's going to be in office and really fight for the things that matter to us as progressives, and I'm very confident she can do that. And I have tremendous respect for Senator Sanders, and I hope that his very progressive voice will continue to be a strong voice in the Senate. But I really admire the campaign he's running, and I have lots of friends who support him and think he would be a great president. So I certainly have deep respect for him. But I'm a huge Hillary Clinton fan. I think she has a record of fighting for the things that matter to this country, and really great examples of success. And she's been in this fight for a very long time. And I think on issues of race and LGBT equality and stuff, she's been a real champion. So I think she'll be a great president.
Indeed. So you, as a member of Congress, are a superdelegate by member of office. And, there is a question now, because superdelegates, you and other superdelegates, 712 of you can, and I was one once when I was a member of the DNC, you can vote for whomever you want. Even if Bernie Sanders were to win the popular vote, you could vote for and maybe throw the nomination to Hillary. There's a movement now for superdelegates to say we'll support the person who gets the most votes in the primary system, whether it's Hillary or Bernie. Would you support that?
Well, I mean, I think, again, superdelegates were created to respond to this question of suppose somebody is selected as a nominee that the party doesn't think can prevail. And so the reality is I think superdelegates are supposed to make a judgment that they think is the right judgment, and they're supposed to exercise their own judgment. If they were simply there to reflect only what happened in their own states, you wouldn't need superdelegates. You just have, primaries with no superdelegates. So I get the argument, and, I think that there may be an occasion in which if a state overwhelmingly selected one candidate over the personal choice or judgment of a superdelegate, that might cause them to change their mind. I have every confidence that in my case, Secretary Clinton's going to win Rhode Island, and so I won't be confronted with that. But again, I think everyone's going to make their own judgment about what would cause them to change their mind, whether it's a popular vote or a change of heart or a particular issue. But I mean, I've known Secretary Clinton for many, many years. I've admired her work. I think she is our strongest candidate to make sure we hold on to the White House.
Do you think Bernie Sanders is a person who could not prevail, could not be elected, and therefore you'd never vote for him?
No, I don't think. I think if Bernie Sanders ended up being the Democratic nominee, we'd have to work really hard to make sure he did prevail, and I would absolutely do my part to make sure that happened.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you about your latest...
And I think, whoever the Democratic nominee is, they're going to win. So I don't think it's any count.
Gotcha. I want to ask you about your latest legislation on guns. This is an issue we've talked about before. You on gun safety. You've been a real leader in that effort, both as mayor up there and Providence, and now in the Congress. And this latest legislation, it seems to me like it's a no-brainer, right? That somebody's convicted of a hate crime cannot buy a gun.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
Tell us about it and what you're hearing from your colleagues.
Yeah. Again, this is part of an ongoing effort that I've tried to do my part in leading in the Congress to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. That is people who are criminals and people who have serious mental illness, such that having a gun is either a danger to themselves or to others. And while it is currently the case that if you are convicted of a felony hate crime, you are prevented from having a gun. If you're convicted of a misdemeanor hate crime, you're not. And the truth is, there's some good research that shows that hate crimes are different than regular crimes because they're not only a crime against an individual, but it's intended to instill fear or terror against a community based on race, religion, sexual orientation, and the like. So it's a really pernicious kind of crime. And the reality is the research shows that these individuals who commit hate crimes tend to escalate their violence. So it might start off by, some outburst of some violence to complain because an African American family has moved into your neighborhood, and then maybe it escalates to a cross being burned on their yard, and then firebombing a house. And so there's this real history of escalation in hate crimes. And so the point of this legislation is when we have evidence that someone has been convicted of a hate crime, and you see these kinds of patterns of escalation, let's prevent that person from owning or buying a gun so that we don't have these horrific examples of people committing hate crimes with guns. And in fact, from 2010 to 2014, about 43,000 hate crimes were committed involving the use of a firearm. And so this is a serious problem in this country, and let's just do everything we can to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and people who would either hurt themselves or hurt the community.
The president often talks about common sense measures. I mean, it seems to me this is definitely one of them, Congressman. You've introduced this legislation, correct?
Yes,
or you plan?
Introduced it yesterday.
Yesterday. But this is on a level, it seems to me, with the no-fly list, right?
Right.
Another no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. That was a provision where we tried to prevent people who are on the terrorist no-fly list as suspected terrorists. They're too dangerous to get on an airplane. They ought to be too dangerous to sell a gun to, but we couldn't get that done. I mean, it was blocked by the Republicans in the House, and I think it's part of this notion of don't give in on any common sense gun safety legislation because they're really bowing at the altar of the NRA and this very powerful gun lobby or gun manufacturers. And the reality is the American people, the members of the NRA, support many of these common sense proposals, but they've sort of just been unwilling, I think, to really stand up and do what's right for the American people. And again, no one's suggesting people shouldn't have a right to have a firearm. It's in our Constitution. We get that. But we certainly have a responsibility to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. And there are a number of bills to do that. And we are continuing to press the Republican House leadership to bring these bills to the floor, to use whatever other techniques we can to try to get a vote on these, because they're important and we can save lives if we enact some of these proposals.
Well, it's clear what you're up against, Congressman, but it's great that you're there fighting the good fight and providing leadership on this and many other issues. Good for the people of Rhode Island, good for the people of the United States, and good for us to have you with us. Thanks so much, Congressman.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. David Cicilline, representing state of Rhode Island, their 1st congressional district, here on The Bill Press Show.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is the story of my grandfather. When I was 19 years old, his right hand was crushed in a printing press. He was supposed to lose the hand, but a young doctor saved it just in time for the war. This is the story of the war. My grandfather repaired tanks. Behind the front lines, away from the cameras, he would pull pieces of dead men from the machines and send the machines back out to the field. This is the story of the war a decade later. Back then, you didn't talk about depression. There was no such thing as PTSD. When my uncle, age 7, asked him who won the war, my grandfather said, nobody. This is the story of my grandfather, the machinist. I have a newspaper from 1981, a story about the Nobel Prize for Physics, a photograph of the winner, a Harvard man standing by his machines. This man is not my grandfather. Beneath the photo, my grandfather has written, I designed and built almost everything in this picture. They worked together for 10 years, but my grandmother says the physicist never even remembered his name. If you asked that Harvard man, there would be no story of my grandfather, just a pair of disembodied hands. This is the problem with stories. They have to leave something out. The editor cuts a line and someone's face fades. The editor says 200 words or less and suddenly a whole family goes missing. The spotlight isn't about the light, it's how it makes everything around it dark. My grandfather's face is erased from every story. The machines survive, but the man who made them doesn't. The machines make the photo, but their maker is out of frame. But we choose where to point the camera. We can choose how to tell the story. We can choose which clothing the hero wears. I could tell you this is a story about a soldier, or I could tell you this is a story about the blue-collar man, but really, this is just the story of my grandfather. I did not know him. I was born too late, but my family tells me his name. Alfred Franzosa. I know that name might only live in this moment, that there are other stories with greater stakes, but still, I will tell you his name. I will repair this old machine. I will let my grandfather live again because I could not know him while he was living. Once, when he was younger than I am now, his right hand was crushed by a printing press, crushed by other people's stories. When it healed, he began to build. He used his hands to build tanks and his hands to build cradles. His hands were the last thing to touch dead soldiers and the first to touch his newborn sons. He built a good family, and that family built me, and now I use my hands to build his story. The story is not a eulogy. A eulogy seals the casket. A eulogy lets no air out. This story is a resurrection. Jesus was not resurrected by God. He was brought back by the people who told his stories. It does not take a miracle to raise the dead, to leave behind the tombstone and take the name with you.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Can't catch the entire show? Listen to BP in 3, where we turn 3 hours into 3 minutes. Find it every day at BP Show on Twitter or at BillPressShow.com.
Here we go now at 24 minutes after the hour. Avery Freedman, CNN legal analyst on the weekends, joins us at the half hour. A couple little breaking news items on the political front just came across during the break. One is the latest poll shows that among Latinos, 8 out of 10 nationwide have a, and there's no secret why, have a dislike of Donald Trump, do not have a very good opinion of Donald Trump, and basically would not vote for him. 8 out of 10. But of course, Donald Trump says, I love Hispanics, and they love me.
They love him.
That's right. Yeah, well, where are they? And by the way, who are the 2 out of 10
I'd love to meet
who
those.
still like Trump after what he has said about them or what he would do to them?
Yeah,
or
I'd love
to
to meet
their
those folks.
husband, wives, mothers, brothers, sisters. He doesn't care. He send them all home.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and Ben Carson.
So there's been a lot of reaction to the president's plan to close Gitmo. Ben Carson has an idea in terms of how we deal with terrorism suspects. He thinks that we should use truth serum. Truth serum. He says, quote, I believe there are a number of ways to extract information. An average person might understand it as truth serum. There are ways where you might decrease a person's conscious defenses and they might want to be more willing to give up information. We've made some advances in that kind of science. Truth serum is how we should handle interrogation suspects.
This is the brain surgeon telling us this?
Yes, indeed.
I just cannot understand Ben Carson.
I can't. I mean, that is the craziest thing.
But the thing we have to remember about him is he is not a candidate running for president.
No.
He is an author and a public speaker selling his brand. That's what he is doing, and that's why he is still in there.
Yeah.
And he will stay in there as long as it is helping his brand, meaning publicity, notoriety, getting more money for speeches and more money for books. That's what it's all about for Ben Carson. Because he certainly
sell.
He certainly ain't gonna win. Oh man! All right, and I didn't even have to take any truth serum to let you know that. How about it? There is a big another issue we haven't had a chance to talk enough about. But Tim Cook was on ABC News last night with David Muir, big interview about his battle with the United States government. As Tim Cook admitted, he said, it's uncomfortable and it's really tough to take on your government. As we know, the United States government is trying to force Apple to develop a new technology to unlock iPhones, not just the one, it turns out, in San Bernardino that terrorist used in that mass murder out there, but at least for now, at least I think it's 10 or 11 others around the country. And Tim Cook said yesterday, if we're forced to do that, this would be bad for America.
The trade-off here is we know that doing this could expose people to incredible vulnerabilities. This is not something that we would create. This would be bad for America.
Bad for America because it would expose all of us to, and you know, it is true. As he pointed out in that interview, and I've got my iPhone right here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my entire life is on this phone.
Yep.
Not everything, but
I got a lot on there. I got a lot on there.
A lot of our private information that we don't want everybody to have total easy access to.
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
Yeah. And if there is a system that somebody can use to unlock and you cannot lock that up on your phone, then we are all vulnerable. The more I think about this, the more I think Tim Cook is absolutely
this
right.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I've traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
You bet it is. 33 minutes after the hour. Thursday, February 25. How about it? Brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers. The Bill Press Show is the great men and women of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten, making a difference in the classroom every day, you bet. We thank them for their support, salute them for their good work. And by the way, Minnesota bound, Minneapolis, St. Paul, going to be there tomorrow for the big Blue State Ball. KTNF, and all of our great friends out there at AM 950. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. So if you haven't already signed up, go to the website. I'm sure it's 950.org or .com probably. And sign up. Come down to the Blue State Ball. Tom Hartman's going to be there. I'll be there. We'll be hanging out. signing books and all kinds of good stuff, and just having a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe
the mini app. And I double checked again for you, Bill. The weather's not too bad.
All right, good.
When you go, so you'll be in fine shape. You don't have to bundle up to.
Yeah.
AM950radio.com is where you check it out. AM950radio.com.
AM950radio.com, and look forward, hopefully, to saying hello to Amy Klobuchar and to Al Franken and a lot of our good friends.
There you go.
KTNF. So, see you on that. Meanwhile, Republicans digging in their heels more than ever, saying, we don't care who the hell President Obama nominates to the Supreme Court. We're not even going to take the time to shake his or her hand. They get away with this? Avery Freedman, weekend legal correspondent for CNN, joining us on our news line to tackle this and other legal issues. Hey, Avery, how are you, man?
I'm great, Bill. You know, I was thinking about you on this subject because you're going to have to write a new chapter for the new book. I mean, I don't know if I'm the first one to bring this up, but with your great disappointment, this one's going to kill you.
Well, it depends on whom he nominates, but I did say, Avery, that if, as rumored, the president were to appoint a Republican governor of Nevada, Brian Sandoval.
Whoever that is, right.
You bet I would write a book about maybe how President Obama let progressives down. But
why? Just because he's anti-labor, pro-gun? I mean, are you concerned about this sort of issues? Yeah, I mean, that's why I say you're going to write a new chapter. I mean, there's going to be an addendum to the book, I think.
But let's talk about this game that McConnell's playing. I mean, is it a game or are they serious? They really say we're just going to sit on our hands for the next year and wait for the next president?
You know, I have to tell you, I went to undergraduate school with Mitch, and he always traveled in a gang. And I'm telling you, this was back in our 20s.
Whoa.
And so he's still traveling with a gang. It sounds as if he's serious, but, you know, if you look at the whole history, and, you know, I teach this stuff. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, since the founding of the nation, we've had roughly 129 nominees. 91% of them get confirmed. And so while we hear the bluster of you know, what we're going to do in taking an extreme position, and I think it is extreme, Bill, I think what the founders had in mind is the primary responsibility is on the president. Yeah, the Senate has advice and consent power, but it's advice and consent. It's not intended to block an otherwise qualified candidate. And in the history of the court, the ones that usually make it, and again, you know, well over 90%, these are the top credentialed people in the country, and that included Scalia, that included Ginsburg. If you've got the credentials, the likelihood is you're going to get in, despite the bluster you're hearing right now. I just can't believe that if you get like a Brian Sandoval, who sat as a federal district judge, was overwhelmingly approved by the Senate. And by the way, the guy went to law school here in Ohio. So there are a whole bunch of really good reasons why he may very well be the kind of candidate that the president is looking at.
Or this Sri Srinivasan, you know, that they've talked about, right? I mean, confirmed by the Senate, just a year or so ago, 97-0.
Yep.
Now sitting on the federal appeals court. How can they? I mean, how could they just, defy a person like that and ignore him or mistreat him for 11 months? And they really think this is a smart political strategy?
Well, it's a baffling one, because if you want to convert something as to me, it's holy stuff. It's sacrosanct stuff into a political issue. I think it defeats the whole intent of what the founders had in mind. I think it diminishes the discourse that really should be involved in. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and I think many Americans feel the same way, those who sit on the Supreme Court are equivalent to those who serve in the Congress, equivalent to the president himself.
Yes, absolutely, and they are lifetime appointments.
Well, you know, it's so interesting. One of the great justices, Robert Jackson, made a remark. He said the Supreme Court isn't final because it's infallible. It's infallible because it is final. which is a great way and a very modest way of putting it. But we're not screwing around. These are the most powerful people among them in this great country.
Now, while we're on that subject, we haven't had a chance to talk since the passing of Justice Scalia.
Yeah.
How is history going to remember Justice Scalia?
Well, I think I can encapsulate that for you. I mean, look, he's a very, very smart guy, but probably the most coarse justice, and I know people are going to be upset with that characterization. I mean, one of the most coarse personalities on the court, unable to get along with many professionally, not personally.
Yeah.
I think they're going to see what he did over 30 years, and what is completely consistent is a harshness, a coarseness, which sacrificed civility, which sacrificed collegiality, professionally, I have to say. Had a significant effect. But you know what? He took over the seat. Wait, whose seat did he take over? He took, was it Warren Burger? He may have.
You got me.
Yeah, I think it might have been. And you know, Warren Burger was
was a gentleman, right?
Right, and he worked to get along. He was the Chief Justice, but you know, right place, right time. These things happen. And you remember, keep in mind, after the Bork debacle, and then Kennedy slid in, and I think Nino Scalia was the first justice in the nation's history, Bill, who understood the importance of image in getting confirmed. The guy shows up, a happy guy with all these kids. And it was the first time we'd ever seen anything like that. So I think that's what you'll remember, a guy that had very strong opinions and was not at all reluctant to use very harsh and coarse language in the way he wrote.
By the way, I don't think Scalia himself would have disagreed with that characterization of because you know he would often say he loved to argue.
Hey, I saw him at a lecture where a student asked him after Bush v. Gore, and it was a wise guy question, and the kid asked the Justice Scalia, "Hey, how did you feel when you wrote Bush v. Gore?" And the audience is stunned with the impertinence of the question, and Scalia looks at the kid and goes, "I felt pretty good." But that was Nino Scalia, and so, you know, he spent time here in my town in Cleveland, practiced law here for about 6 years, then went to Chicago, which is really Cleveland on steroids, and then from there wound up in Washington.
Right. The other big legal issue of the day, Avery, I have to ask you about it too, is this is probably going all the way to the court, and maybe they'll have 9 members by the time it gets there. Apple versus the United States government. I mean, this is a big deal, isn't it?
It is a big deal, but there will be some precedent created. Whether it will persuade the courts in California remains to be seen. But right now, there's a case pending in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York. That's in Brooklyn. And Justice Department is trying to bust open, unencrypt, if you will, cell phones of drug lords. And that case is pending. We're going to see an opinion sooner rather than later. And I think the likelihood is that the government may prevail. What effect that decision is going to have, Bill, remains to be seen. But it will be the first of its type and will clearly impact the ultimate decision on the battle going on between the government and Apple right now.
But you say the government prevails, so that the courts would uphold that the government has the right to tell a private company that they have to develop a technology to destroy their own product? I mean, the implications of that are huge, it seems to me.
Absolutely. And don't think that just because a United States district judge makes a ruling that that's the end of it. It's heading to the Court of Appeals and ultimately to the Supreme Court. And that's where you'll see that. I think the court would take it. And again, that's the one in Brooklyn. Before you ever see the light of day and what's going on out in California.
I see. The one in Brooklyn is ahead of it, is what you're...
You bet.
And it's the same issue, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's the variation on the issue, and ultimately that I think is cutting edge technology. The whole larger issue, which I talk to my students about, and that is, can law ever catch up with technology, which continues to be a very complicated issue.
It is. Well, we're talking about this one vacancy now, Avery, but for the next president, whom we think is going to be a Democrat. There are going to be some other vacancies coming up too. So we want you to keep your resume, up to date here.
I've been on that short list before, my friend. I'm not going anywhere. But except I want to hang out with you guys.
Hey, you could come on by. We'll make room for you in the black robe.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'll put that in. Just look, we'll be on a first name basis. Bill, I'll call you Bill, and you call me Judge.
All right, guys. Thanks, Avery. All right, great to visit with you. The one and only, the great Avery Freedman from CNN, weekend legal correspondent.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It occurred to me tonight, for the first time, that the long-winged insect that over and over again rams its body into the wood of my front door might not know what he's doing. He might not have a plan. Maybe that's just how he flies, and that is where the door is. And I remember you. The last time I saw you, a few weeks before we would graduate from high school, and a few days before you let a bullet dissolve on your tongue, dancing in a warehouse rave, sweat-drenched and strobe light battered, thrashing your arms back and thrusting them forward. The floor could get so bright and loud, we all slowed down to be more careful, but you kept dancing full sprint tornado, and sometimes you'd spin full weight into a wall and just spread your arms against it and sway back and forth like a lover reunited. This long-winged insect is not trying to get into the house. It doesn't know there is a house. Can't imagine a life beyond that door. All it can see is the light. You and I were both 17 when you died. And ever since then, I have envied you. How you are remembered for towering, unclaimed potential instead of living to look regret in the face. You didn't have to come home 3 weeks later and explain to your little brother why you took too much medicine. Your addiction is remembered as a tragedy, not a betrayal. Your suicide attempt became a suicide, not an unpaid hospital bill. And only tonight did it occur to me that maybe that night when you let your teeth touch metal, you might not have known what you were doing. You might not have had a plan. Maybe you had hit that door so many times you couldn't imagine it might let you through. I'm still ashamed to admit it, but I have always secretly believed you did it for me, that you wanted to show me that there is a way out of all of this. Not so that I would follow you, but so I would understand that every day that I am alive is a day that I choose to be alive. And when the music stops, you still get to keep on dancing. And when the light is so bright it blinds, you can dance with your eyes closed. And if in that dark you come up against a wall, you keep your arms out wide and you dance with the wall.
From The Nation magazine joins us at the top of the next hour with a stunning new article in this week's Nation, thenation.com, of course, about how Democrats ought to be worried about Donald Trump, were he the presidential nominee, because he could actually attract a lot of blue-collar Democratic votes and working men and women, and maybe scare the hell out of us and maybe even win. On the political front, by the way, lots more news about Mitt Romney today. But first, A little reminder, the book of the moment is my new book, Buyer's Remorse. You know, Hillary's talking about it. Bernie wrote a blurb on it. And it's all about the Obama administration, what the president was able to accomplish successfully that we can be proud of, but also those ways in which he has let us down, especially in the national security area with the drones and with all the wiretapping and the failure to go after any Wall Street executives for the crimes they committed. Buyer's Remorse, you can get it at your local bookstore. You can get it from BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Or if you want a signed copy, that's the point of this message, go to our website, BillPressShow.com. Just tell us how you want it signed, inscribed. I'll do it. We'll get it out to you right away. Buyer's Remorse, my new book. So the funniest thing yet, it's been a wild campaign, a wild primary season. Maybe the funniest development yet came yesterday when Mitt Romney, remember him? Yeah, he was he was the heir apparent, the guy that Republicans were absolutely confident was going to be the next president of the United States. He's been holding his fire, but he really, really is desperate for people to pay attention to him and take him seriously again. So he, after waiting all this time, jumped on the Marco Rubio bandwagon yesterday with a mission. His mission was to insist and embarrass Donald Trump into releasing his tax returns because, as Mitt indicates, there could be some real surprises in there.
You know, frankly, I think we have good reason to believe that there's a bombshell in Donald Trump's taxes.
What do you mean?
Well, I think there's something there. Either he's not anywhere near as wealthy as he says he is, or he hasn't been paying the kind of taxes we would expect him to pay, or perhaps he hasn't been giving money to the vets or to the disabled like he's been telling us he's been doing.
Okay, now, this is the Mitt Romney. Here's what's so funny about this. This is the Mitt Romney who might have been president of the United States, except for the fact that 4 years ago, he refused to release his tax returns. His father, when he ran for president, released 12 years of tax returns. Mitt Romney, this 2012, released 2010 and 2011. And as I recall, Mitt Romney bragged about the fact that he had paid 10% in taxes.
It was a real problem for him. It was a real problem for him. So he had a lot of problems. This was maybe his biggest one.
Right. And remember, so because he would not release his tax returns, and he refused all the way, stubbornly, all the way, because of that, that became the big issue in the campaign.
Yeah.
And they talked about, well, he had money in the Cayman Islands. He had not paid. He had not given as much money to charity, just like he accused Donald Trump of, as we thought. Or Harry Reid even said somebody told him that Mitt Romney didn't pay any taxes at all for 10 years, and Romney never showed any evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. By the way, Donald Trump has responded to this whole thing on Twitter. Where else? He first of all yesterday said, when Mitt Romney asked me for my endorsement last time around, he was so awkward and goofy that we all should have known he could not win. And breaking news, he just tweeted this about 15 minutes ago. Mitt Romney, who was one of the dumbest and worst candidates in the history of Republican politics, is now pushing me on tax returns. Dope, is what Donald Trump says in a tweet early this morning, about 15 minutes ago. Dope.
Well, let's put it this way. Of course, Donald Trump never holds back in his tweets, needless to say. But if I were... the Rubio campaign does not call me every day for advice. But if they were to call me today, or if they had called me yesterday, I would suggest that the person you want out front challenging Donald Trump on his tax returns and the need to release them is not the person who got in trouble and lost the presidency 4 years ago because he refused to release his tax returns, right? Not the best messenger in that case.
It's amazing.
Donald Trump is going to have a field day with this. Poor Mittens, you know, nobody takes him seriously anymore. Nor should we. Yes, President Obama, busy day today. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. And again, John Nichols at the top of the next hour.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, you thought the first 2 hours were good? Wait till you get to our third hour. John Nichols from The Nation magazine at the top of the hour with his big article in The Nation this week about why Donald Trump could actually win the presidency. Oh, my God. And then we're going to be talking to Jake Tapper, of course, from CNN, host of State of the Union on Sunday mornings. And then we'll settle back. A little bourbon steak for breakfast. How about it? Can't wait. So stay with us for hour number 3. Remember, 5 o'clock Eastern on Free Speech TV. You got to wait till then, but right away on TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR TV.
You taught him how to hit a baseball. Just like that. How to hit a receiver. The strike zone. The net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation of supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go with today's schedule. By the way, at the top of the next hour, of course, John Nichols will be joining us from The Nation magazine. John Nichols with a cover story on Donald Trump. Watch out. Then we'll be joined by Jake Tapper, the host of The Lead, obviously, on CNN every afternoon at 4, and then host of State of the Union Sunday mornings. Interesting to talk to Jake about the big Republican debate tonight in Houston. It's Wolf Blitzer who's the moderator, not Jake, but Jake's very much a part of the preparations for it. And then we're going to kick back and have a little steak and eggs here.
Let's do it.
Bourbon steak coming in. President Obama doesn't have nearly as interesting a schedule as we do.
I know, right?
But after he gets a briefing today, late in the morning, he's going to participate in a panel discussion as part of the White House Precision Medicine Initiative, whatever the hell that is.
Whoa.
I'm not sure. And then the president is going around the corner over to the State Department, hosting a meeting of the National Security Council. That meeting, which will include some representatives from the Department of Defense and the National Counterterrorism Center, being held this year at the State Department. President Obama making a statement there as well. And Our press briefing with Josh Earnest is at 1 o'clock today down at the White House. Again, back with John Nichols. Could Donald Trump pose a serious threat in November?
This is the Bill Press Show.
One of the most profound movements and one of the first real social movement in American history was all about slavery, and that's labor. And it was about creating a different kind of democracy, different kind of way of thinking about the economy. And I think these battles aren't over. The African American portion of American wealth as a whole is 3% today. And the last time it was 3% was in 1868, 3 years after slavery. African Americans going back to before the Civil War, and the earliest African American spokespersons and writers and leaders like Frederick Douglass and others argued that the fundamental feature of the American economy was dehumanization. And they also argued that you can't have a democratic constitution and an economic system that degrades and exploits people. Many of the radical Republicans who fought for the Civil War and in the Civil War believed the same thing. I think the true intent of the 13th Amendment wasn't just to eliminate chattel slavery. It was to eliminate all forms of economic oppression and create what we would now call living wages for everybody. I think that was the true intent. But these things were overthrown. After the Civil War, there was a counter-revolution, Lincoln's assassination, the destruction of Reconstruction. We got segregation, which wasn't just about making white people feel superior, it was about a cheap labor force, which persisted. The 1963 March on Washington, where everyone sees Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Well, King wasn't head of that march. A. Philip Randolph was, the first black trade union president. The demand of the march was for jobs and freedom. Jobs came even before freedom. That sort of dream of a new kind of economy was tightly connected with thinking about voting rights and a new kind of politics. And when African Americans said we refuse to work as basically semi-slave laborers with no rights and no voting rights and no protections, and my generation said we're not going to do that work that our parents did, then employers started bringing undocumented immigrants into the country to work with no rights and no protections. And when the government said, well, what are we going to do with all these young folks like me who don't want to do this kind of semi-slave work? They didn't reform the economy. They said, let's lock them up. And we got mass incarceration. And so I think all of these things are related to our history. All of these things are part of the challenge of changing the system. And the system connects these things.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
I wanted to find a bank with a purpose. I wanted to find a place that would take my money and not use it to cause the financial crisis, but to fix the financial crisis and to help end income inequality.
The people that we employ are usually clients right off the streets. They don't have an account, but Amalgamated is willing to get that started for them.
Their reputation of supporting the working man, I think, speaks for itself. This is a bank that cares for their customers, and I appreciate that.
We were able to access a construction loan through the bank's programs, and that loan has helped us house 28 families in the community.
Amalgamated is a bank that was started for and about working people.
Many of our customers have a deep commitment to advocating for social and economic justice. We share that commitment, and we're not afraid to stand up and say that we need to change some of the way that the country does business.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, folks, good to see you.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The 5 remaining Republicans take the stage again tonight. Will it be Ted and Marco ganging up on Donald, or Ted and Marco ganging up on each other? Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Thursday, February 25. So good to see you today. And thanks for joining us here on The Bill Press Show as we reach out to you and join you everywhere in this great land of ours, on the radio and on television, on your local progressive talk radio station, and on Free Speech TV. Thanks for being with us. Lots to talk about on many, many different fronts today. So we got the entire team assembled here. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Yo! Yep.
Yes,
here we go.
Indeed. Ray Rogers. Ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking good on the big video screen and video stream, Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Donald Trump, Washington finally maybe starting to take him seriously, Peter. Yesterday, 2 members of Congress, the first 2 members of Congress came out and endorsed Donald Trump. Duncan Hunter from San Diego and Chris Collins from New York. Why would Chris Collins, Republican from New York State, endorse Donald Trump? Because he says, just think of the cabinet he's going to put together.
And so I can absolutely identify with Donald Trump in his private sector experience.
Right.
And am very confident that the cabinet he puts together would be the best cabinet ever assembled in the United States.
It'll be the biggest bunch of freaks ever assembled.
It's going to look like the Star Wars cantina. It is going to look absolutely horrifying. Can you even imagine?
Pat Robertson.
Yeah.
Will be there.
Yes.
You know.
My spiritual advisor, Pat Robertson.
Unbelievable. But on the Donald Trump front, by the way, Jake Tapper is going to be joining us from CNN. about 10 minutes from now, and then as we mentioned, we're going to have a little steak and eggs for breakfast here a little bit later in the show. After all, it is Thursday. But speaking of Mr. Trump, I read an article yesterday that scared the hell out of me. In The Nation, in the headline is President Donald J. Trump, it could happen. John Nichols, our good buddy from Madison, Wisconsin, Washington correspondent for The Nation on our news line. John, say it isn't so.
Well, we're going to need something to wake people up, Bill. So
yeah, but
get them out of bed.
You make some very strong arguments. In fact, I gave a speech yesterday at lunch, and I was quoting your article.
Well, at least we live in the modern age, don't we?
Yeah, yes, indeed.
And maybe that's our hope. But the point of this article was to get Democrats, independents, progressives, maybe even responsible Republicans, thinking beyond the moment we are in. Because the reason that Donald Trump is now surging ahead in the Republican race, the reason he is now likely to be the Republican nominee,
yeah.
I should say that without qualms and without qualifications. Right. The reason he is here is because everyone in the Republican Party and their entire genius elites, all their political strategists, frankly, with all due respect, all the people that beat Democrats in a lot of midterm cycles, right? They presumed in the moment that they could deal with Donald Trump. They just were like, well, he's going to stumble tomorrow. He's going to say something next week. People are going to wake up to him. They just kept anticipating that something would happen, kind of on the normal cycle. They didn't interrupt Donald Trump's interruption. Well, this is what this article is about. It's suggesting to people that if they don't want Donald Trump to be their president, they'd better start thinking now about what to do. And what was striking to me was that I was in Ohio. I spent a lot of time, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, looking at these states that really are kind of the core swing states for Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats can win and lose some other places. They can come up, they can go down. But if you do badly in that
oh, yeah, absolutely.
area, you're doomed, right?
Right.
Because it's not like Democrats are likely to swing the full South. It's not
right.
like Democrats are likely to swing the full West. So here's what I heard. When progressive Democrats in those places have watched these Republican debates, as painful as it is, they don't hear the things everybody else hears. They don't hear the, back and forth between Rubio and Cruz, all the silliness. They don't hear Trump insulting people, stuff like that. What they hear is how frequently Trump goes to an argument about closing factories, loss of jobs, bad trade policies, and what they said to me was that unless Democrats are prepared to counter Trump, not merely with a better populism, not to say, oh, well, I'll keep the jobs, right? But with something that is really believable, that is something that is really strong, that is deeper and smarter, and that also incorporates in all of the mobilization of those groups that Trump has insulted and attacked. If you don't combine those two things, this guy could win.
Well, the appeal to blue-collar workers, right, men and women, a lot of union members, if he's talking about NAFTA, he talks about China, right, he talks about TPP, he talks about the loss of jobs and bringing jobs back. Now, whether he could do anything about it or not, it resonates, right?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
And this is what progressive labor leaders, Democratic members of Congress, others said to me. I don't think that the political elites in Washington, and I'm talking about both Democratic and Republican political elites, have ever really understood what a big issue trade policy is. I think that they kind of always think, well, yeah, those people out there don't understand. Maybe they don't. But what they do understand is that the mills have closed, the factories have shuttered, the warehouses are not employing as much, and that even if they have jobs, the downward pressure is so intense that they're looking at lives for themselves and for their children that are not very hopeful. And this is the real explanation for all the volatility of this year. What I would counsel Democrats to do is pay attention to some of the words that Marcy Kaptur, the congresswoman from northern Ohio, has said. She says, when Donald Trump starts talking about factory closures, as he has done in almost all of his recent town hall appearances, debates, he doesn't talk about, ledger books and stats, and he doesn't talk about the horrible threat, retraining, right, which for a 58-year-old guy laid off from a factory is not a very attractive promise. What he talks about is bringing the jobs back. And he also does something else. He goes to a human level. He talks about people crying when they hear that their factory is closed. Grown men, strong guys, breaking down in tears.
Right. And he gives concrete examples like this Carrier one that you referenced, right? I mean, these are real jobs, real
1,500 jobs that are going. And the Nabisco, he's been talking about he's not going to eat certain kind of cookies because they're moving their jobs. Now that may sound absurd to people who deal in the upper tier of, international economic policy. But you know what? I grew up near Kenosha, Wisconsin. I still can't buy a foreign car because Kenosha made AMC and then Chrysler cars.
Yeah.
It's in my DNA. Does that mean I'm going to vote for Donald Trump? No, it does not.
Well,
but it means that when a candidate starts to reference those themes, when
they ring true. Yep, yeah, absolutely. So, but John, obviously Donald Trump is not the only one who's talking about who's been on this trade issue for a long time and on the jobs issue for a long time and on the factory closings. Our guy, your friend and mine, Bernie Sanders, has too. So people have a choice between, working men and women, between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. They'll really choose Trump over Sanders?
No, not necessarily. But here's a counsel for you, and this is an important one. Elise Hogue from NARAL, who was one of the people I talked to a lot, who's very, very savvy on these issues, and Roseanne DeMoro from the National Nurses Union. I talked to a lot of people who aren't your traditional industrial union folks. I talked to a lot of industrial union folks as well. And there's a nuanced message here that's important. And I don't want to try and be kumbaya between the battling Democrats, but Sanders' economic message is incredibly important. So too is that kind of trust factor, that sense that he's been on it for a long time.
Right.
That matters a lot. It may even matter more than the specifics, the sense that you're going to fight this. Parallel to that, and this is important though, is something that frankly Clinton has done, and I think she's done it rather well at some points in this race, and that is talking about the issues that go beyond economics and sort of the challenges that we face because of the economics. Sanders does that too. They both do it. But it is very, very important to recognize that there is going to have to be a combination to beat Trump, if he is the nominee, combination of economic populism, strong, deep, hardcore economic populism that's real, and solidarity politics, a sense of connectedness to people of color, to the LGBT community, to immigrants, that isn't just talk. And wouldn't accuse either of these candidates of just talk. What I'm saying is, but it's got to go deep and it's got to be intense, because as Sanders says, these economic issues touch every community. That's right. You weave people together there. But as Clinton says, there are issues that go beyond economics, that if you were to vote somebody into office just because they're promising you this or that, you might get a whole bunch of other pathologies that you really don't want as a society.
Well,
attacking immigrants and others.
Yes, right. And
so
I think
it's a combination that Democrats have to get right. If they get it wrong, they run risks of things like what you saw in California 20 years ago, Bill, where you saw Republicans taking some of these issues and going to very dangerous places.
Right, exactly. Well, it's a very powerful article, and got me thinking. I got to tell you that, very provocative. Everything you do gets me thinking, John Nichols. So good to spend some time with you again today. Come back to Washington. We haven't seen you in a while.
I'll be there soon, my friend. And thanks for all
right.
the
Come
on by, man.
John Nichols out of Madison, Wisconsin, joining all of our good friends out there on 92.1 The Mic. And we'll come back with Jake Tapper, CNN.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is the story of my grandfather. When I was 19 years old, his right hand was crushed in a printing press. He was supposed to lose the hand, but a young doctor saved it just in time for the war. This is the story of the war. My grandfather repaired tanks. Behind the front lines, away from the cameras, he would pull pieces of dead men from the machines and send the machines back out to the field. This is the story of the war a decade later. Back then, you didn't talk about depression. There was no such thing as PTSD. When my uncle, age 7, asked him who won the war, my grandfather said, nobody. This is the story of my grandfather, the machinist. I have a newspaper from 1981, a story about the Nobel Prize for Physics, a photograph of the winner, a Harvard man standing by his machines. This man is not my grandfather. Beneath the photo, my grandfather has written, I designed and built almost everything in this picture. They worked together for 10 years, but my grandmother says the physicist never even remembered his name. If you asked that Harvard man, there would be no story of my grandfather, just a pair of disembodied hands. This is the problem with stories. They have to leave something out. The editor cuts a line and someone's face fades. The editor says 200 words or less and suddenly a whole family goes missing. The spotlight isn't about the light, it's how it makes everything around it dark. My grandfather's face is erased from every story. The machines survive, but the man who made them doesn't. The machines make the photo, but their maker is out of frame. But we choose where to point the camera. We can choose how to tell the story. We can choose which clothing the hero wears. I could tell you this is a story about a soldier, or I could tell you this is a story about the blue-collar man, but really, this is just the story of my grandfather. I did not know him. I was born too late, but my family tells me his name. Alfred Franzosa. I know that name might only live in this moment, that there are other stories with greater stakes, but still, I will tell you his name. I will repair this old machine. I will let my grandfather live again because I could not know him while he was living. Once, when he was younger than I am now, his right hand was crushed by a printing press, crushed by other people's stories. When it healed, he began to build. He used his hands to build tanks and his hands to build cradles. His hands were the last thing to touch dead soldiers and the first to touch his newborn sons. He built a good family, and that family built me, and now I use my hands to build his story. The story is not a eulogy. A eulogy seals the casket. A eulogy lets no air out. This story is a resurrection. Jesus was not resurrected by God. He was brought back by the people who told his stories. It does not take a miracle to raise the dead, to leave behind the tombstone and take the name with you.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 22 minutes after the hour on this Thursday, February 25. Again, good to have you with us. I've talked to you about my new job back at CNN as a political contributor, and nothing more fun at CNN than to join my old friend Jake Tapper, either on The Lead every afternoon at 4 or on State of the Union Sunday morning starting at 9 and then rebroadcast at 12 Eastern. And Jake joins us for a recap here on our news line this morning. Hey, Jake, how are you?
Good. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm looking at CNN, but you're in a commercial, and so I cannot see the countdown clock to tonight's debate. But I wanted to ask you, what do you expect? Are Cruz and Rubio going to go after Trump or after each other? What are you looking for?
Well, I've given up trying to understand the campaigns that are not Donald Trump's, given that there's been this reluctance for months to go after the front runner. There's all these crazy theories about, well, first I have to win my lane, and then I can go after Trump. And it's been reluctance. Frankly, people are afraid to take him on because they know that he is so devastating when he counterpunches. But that said, I mean, this is the last debate before Super Tuesday, and Trump's nomination looks, I wouldn't call it a guaranteed thing, but he's certainly on his way to it. And if Rubio or Cruz want to stop him, now's the time.
It seems to me, this is their last opportunity to, right? At the same time, Jake, if both of them continue after Super Tuesday, and it's still the three top people there, then it's impossible. Really becomes more impossible for them to stop Trump, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because first of all, the primaries and caucuses change after Super Tuesday. They change, and they're a lot more winner take all.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't be. Good point. When Trump wins, if he wins a state after this Tuesday, he'll take all the delegates, and the math just becomes impossible. So they really have to make their case now, and we'll see what happens. But if they don't do it now, then a lot of political scientists are going to look back at this election and write books about why more of Trump's rivals didn't take him on directly.
Well, there's several stories this morning about building pressure on John Kasich to drop out and get out of the way. But would that really make such a... I mean, he is different than the others. Would that really make such a big difference? Does he have that much support that it could, sway this election?
No, I mean, he has some support from donors, and he has, about 5 or 6% in the polls. But,
yeah.
I guess the point is that the assumption is that those votes would go to Marco Rubio. And I don't know that you can make that assumption, but assuming you do, Rubio needs as much consolidation as he can get. But at the end of the day, Kasich's not the issue, Trump is. And, Carson's not the issue for Cruz, Trump is. And you need to beat the front runner. And all this other stuff about lanes, and I need this guy to drop out, so I can have his voters, is really kind of delusional. You have to beat Donald Trump. You have to win the primary. And you have to convince Trump's supporters that you're the better candidate. It's really very quizzical.
Jake Tapper with us, host of The Lead on CNN on every weekday at 4 and State of the Union on Sundays at 9 a.m. So, Jake, yesterday, Marco Rubio rolling out a big gun to challenge Donald Trump on releasing his tax returns. Is Mitt Romney the right guy to carry that message?
I don't know that he's the right guy, but it is a legitimate issue. The argument that was made about Romney needing to release his tax returns,
yes,
was a strong one because, look, the idea is Republican voters have a right to know everything in your past now to make the judgment about electability. And if Donald Trump refuses to release them before he has secured the nomination, and then it turns out that there's something on there that couldn't really hurt him, well, that's something voters have a right to know.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that turns out, right? But we are reminded of Mitt Romney's troubles 4 years ago. Hey, Jake, so good to have you with us. Thank you so much. I know Sunday we'll be talking about Super Tuesday and still some repercussions from tonight's debate. Thanks, Jake. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, Jake Tapper on CNN. Cell phones are great when they're great and not so great when they're not so great. But
he brings up a good point, though, about the taxes, right? Like, this is a legitimate issue that they could use, and they could not have picked a worse person to carry the message.
Right. He also brings out a good point, I believe, that they've got to go after Donald Trump, right? I mean, he is winning. He's won 3 in a row.
Some might argue he's already won, but yeah, he is winning.
That's right. And, the people that look at the math, and there are a lot of states, 12 states coming up on Tuesday, and this is the last debate before the last chance that people have to take a look at them. And as we learned earlier this morning, Donald Trump is not spending one dime on television advertising in any one of the Super
Not one.
Tuesday states.
Nope.
Which means they know something that we don't know. I think it means that they realize we'll give Ted Cruz Texas, and we'll take all the rest, and we can get the rest without having to do television advertising. And if that happens and he does the board except for Texas,
This
he's a
is the
nominee.
Bill Press Show.
QL1, this is Control. Ground crew is secure. Over. Copy that, Control. Rockets powering up. Over. QL1, this is Control. Does Rocket Mortgage require me to fill out a bunch of paperwork? Negative, Control. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans is the first on-demand mortgage machine that quickly and seamlessly imports your financial data. You can go through the entire mortgage approval process in minutes. Copy that, QL1. That is fast, like rocket fast. Do you think that's why they named it Rocket Mortgage? Over. Affirmative, Control. That's probably why they named it Rocket Mortgage. It also works on any internet-ready device, so you can get a Rocket Mortgage at any time or place you choose. Roger that, QL1. So technically speaking...
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 33 minutes after the hour. How about it? It is the Bill Press Show, and here we are in our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill, and we're there with you coast to coast, north, south, east, west, on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV. Check it out and take a look at our new studio here. And if you are on your electronic device, just go to our website at billpressshow.com, youtube.com/billpressshow, I should say, for the video stream. Are you hungry? Yeah, well, I am, and it's a good time to kick back and say hello to a star chef here in Washington, D.C., which is becoming sort of a fine dining city, thanks to the efforts of people like Joe Palma, who's the chef at Bourbon Steak in the Four Seasons Hotel.
Yes, sir.
Now, but Joe, nice to see you, chef. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
As we were talking, and I was looking at your resume, you've been in some mighty fine places that where I have enjoyed dining. High Cotton down in Charleston.
Yes, sir.
Slightly north of Broad down in Charleston. West End Bistro here in Washington, D.C. Citronelle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to Citronelle once when somebody else paid.
That would be the way to go to Citronelle. That's the way to go.
Yeah, now Bourbon Steak at the Four Seasons. Yeah, what's going on there?
Just all sorts of stuff. You know, obviously, DC.
The name sort of tells it all.
Right. DC does not want for steakhouses by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
So, it's certainly our thought moving forward that we don't want to be a great steakhouse. We want to be a great restaurant that happens to serve a lot of steak, and be able to serve a wider constituency than people who just want to go for steak. So that's certainly what our priority is for the next year or so.
I've always wondered, restaurants in hotels, are they tougher or other than a freestanding restaurant like some of the other steakhouses here that are known to you go there for a steak?
It's a really interesting dynamic. Obviously, having worked with Eric's repairs consulting company with the Ritz-Carlton, now with Michael Mean at the Four Seasons, it's really interesting all the different dynamics those relationships can take on. I think that
because you got hotel guests, I guess, which is a plus you wouldn't build in almost plus. Huh?
This is true, and it depends on how much you pull from the hotel. Obviously, with both the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons, we have a very sort of international clientele that are well traveled that might take a few more chances and have a wider interest base in a lot of the different cuisine that we can do. So we're not quite limited by that. You know what I'm saying?
Now you are coming up with a big event night at Bourbon Steak with House of Cards, a partnership with. I mean, they've taken over this town, House of Cards, in the last couple of days, man.
Good grief,
President Frank.
Yep.
Did you see he opened up a campaign headquarters in South Carolina, where he's from, and it just says "F.U." Frank Underwood.
Done.
Which I love. That's great.
Or it could be Furman University.
It could be Furman University, also in South Carolina. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And so they had the premiere of the show. The show had a screening at the Portrait Gallery the other night. Mm-hmm. They unveiled the official portrait of President Frank Underwood at the Portrait Gallery. And you are celebrating with a House of Cards special event?
We are. We're doing, they released it, I believe, March 4th. So what we're doing in our private dining room, we've got a couple large TVs set up, sort of turning into a campaign headquarters, Frank Underwood pins and posters and all sorts of stuff. And we're doing a lot of Southern food. Obviously, big fan of Southern food coming out of South Carolina. And something near and dear to my heart and obviously to Frank Underwood's character as well. So we're kind of taking that and riffing on it and doing a big old barbecue spread for the season premiere there.
Oh my!
I have to say, I've had the pulled pork.
Peter is our number one foodie, and he's from Charleston. He's from Charleston.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I've had the pulled pork Pop-Tarts that they serve at Bourbon Steak, which are.
How did you do that?
Hey man.
Okay.
You just got to go over there.
They're available for sale. I'm not going to lie to you. It wasn't a secret thing.
But so this idea that in House of Cards that Underwood went to this and frequented this barbecue shack sort of in D.C., which doesn't really there's not really anything like that here in D.C., right? The barbecue place, but. Having had the barbecue that he makes over at Bourbon Steak, it's really good with the mustard-based barbecue sauce, which not a lot of people know about outside of South Carolina. It's a very Carolina thing. It's so good. Holy cow.
Thanks, sir.
You don't think of Washington as a barbecue center, right? I mean,
not really. You know, I don't think it's ever had, you know, sort of a national prominence. I think there's a lot of people doing good barbecue in D.C. Hill Country comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think there's a few other places sort of opening up. But yeah, it's, you know, D.C. obviously kind of straddles that north-south divide in several different aspects. So I think you're seeing more of it sort of come in, but historically it hasn't been really one of the driving forces of D.C. culinary scene by a stretch.
You would think that we would have a better barbecue scene. I mean, because technically we are in the South. As a South Carolinian, I have this fight with people all the time.
Right.
Because Maryland is technically the South.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
No. North Carolina is kind of the South.
Right.
The people in South Carolina, it's like,
Yeah,
ish.
right. Exactly. But I'm always
Well,
stunned
you
that we
guys are
don't...
moving the line now here, right? I mean, the Mason-Dixon line is...
I know,
north of here, so.
I know where it technically lies, but it's you know, it's tough.
Yeah. So what do you got for us this morning here, Chef?
Well, we had some fresh cornbread bacon for you. We actually baked it a little too thick, so it's going to be done in about 20 minutes.
Nice.
Back at the restaurant.
Oh,
so
see you over there.
in place of that, we've got a lovely selection of pastries from our hotel team that baked them off this morning for you.
Is that right?
Yes,
Great.
sir.
With some croissant and yeah.
We got jam, we got muffins, we got pain au chocolat, we got all sorts of stuff for you.
Very
Oh my
nice.
God. Yeah.
What all are you going to have on the menu at the House of Cards?
Yes,
dinner?
tell us about that.
We're doing a pretty traditional barbecue in the style of Freddy's barbecue joint. We've got ribs. We're going to do the braised pork butt. We're going to do brisket. We're going to do, obviously, the Carolina barbecue sauce, more of a mustard-based.
That alone is reason enough to go, by the way, because if you haven't had the mustard-based barbecue sauce, like it's near and dear to my heart because that's what I grew up on.
Sure.
But like, it's not something that everybody
You keep
has
coming
exposure
back to that. It must have
so
made,
good.
must
dude.
have, must have
It
made
apparently resonated quite a bit.
Look, I don't miss a lot of meals, okay? I know what I'm talking about. Carolina barbecue mustard base is my favorite.
Sure.
It's really good. What else you got?
We got all the traditional sides, mac and cheese, coleslaw. We're going to have some baked beans as well. We've got a smoked blue cheese ranch salad to start, and we're actually finishing off with peaches and sweet tea glazed donuts.
Oh, man.
Ooh, wow.
Sweet tea glazed donuts?
Yeah.
It's
good does that
I'm
sound?
not going to lie to you. Well, here's where that came from. So a bunch of my friends, I went to the College of Charleston, a bunch of my friends and I, after graduating, go back for a beach house every year, right?
Oh, nice.
So one year I decided I'm going to do a pig roast. So we go out and buy a pig and do this big roast. We're heading back. I'm like, oh, man, I need dessert, right? Past Krispy Kreme out there on Maybank Highway, right?
Yeah.
Big old hot signs on them like hot donuts. Yeah, and it's like June at that time, so you're starting to see sort of peaches come across on the roadside stands. I'm like, Krispy Kreme, peaches.
Oh,
dessert is served.
Boom! Holy cow, that sounds so good.
Yeah, we actually we had a version of it. Our pastry team did a really great job, sort of translating that with a sweet tea glaze for the summer last year, and it's going to come back this year, and we're going to kick it off on the 4th.
For the record, this is a shots fired moment. I know everybody talks about Georgia peaches. South Carolina peaches are better than Georgia peaches.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think so, anyway. I'm biased. Frank Underwood agrees with me.
Does he really? Well,
if you take the water tower down.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll tell you, I know our good friends Don and Carol Fowler from Columbia, South Carolina, agree with that. Anytime Don Fowler, he was former chair of the Democratic National Committee, now teaches at the University of South Carolina, great guy. And he and his wife Carol, every time he comes to Washington, in season, right?
Sure.
He brings a basket of those South Carolina peaches and gives them out to his friends.
You can do worse for welcome gifts.
That's right.
You could do worse, I'll tell you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now you need the sweet tea donuts.
Right. What is your so bourbon is steak still the number one order meal
far and away.
in your
far and away.
That most people when they go out to dinner, that's what they want.
Yeah, I think especially obviously coming to Bourbon Steak, they
I'm going to enjoy this croissant while we're talking.
Please do.
Yeah.
I think definitely coming to Bourbon Steak, obviously steak's far and away our number one seller. You're seeing a lot of people, obviously trying to eat healthier. You mentioned Garrison earlier, which I think Rob's doing great stuff over there with vegetables and vegetable-centric cuisine, and Jeremiah at the Dabney's doing great stuff similarly. And you see a lot of that sort of vegetable influence definitely moving into restaurants as a whole. Obviously, it's less pronounced with what we do. I don't think anybody shows up at Bourbon Steak saying, I'm here for the vegetarian entree.
Vegetarian entree.
We're happy to accommodate that, obviously, but not really the general thrust of what we're trying to do. So yeah, you see more vegetables, but certainly steak, and we're lucky with a lot of the people that we're able to deal with. Shenandoah Beef Co-op, Leaping Waters Farm out of Virginia. There's just a tremendous amount of
Well, I was going to ask you
really
that next.
farmers.
Are you do you believe in local products and to the extent that you can get them and
Oh, absolutely.
featuring them?
I think one of the nice things about bourbon steak and sort of having that mandate be as wide as it is, there's plenty of room for everybody, right? We've got local grass-fed stuff, like I said, from Leaping Waters. Alec Bradford does a great job down there. I've known him for about 10 years. Through Capital Meat and the Shenandoah Beef Co-op, it's a good way for a whole bunch of smaller farmers in the Shenandoah Valley that might not be able to provide as much product as we go through, obviously, at Bourbon Steak, and we can feature them. That's all natural grass-fed product as well. But we bring in stuff from Oregon, and we bring in stuff from Australia, and we have Japanese beef as well. So it really allows us to put a very wide array of things in front of the diner, so they can really have as unique an experience as they want.
For the record, by the way, if steak is not necessarily a thing, you guys do a lot of other stuff, but if you get a chance to go at lunch and have a burger, the burgers are crazy good at Bourbon Steak.
Thank you.
They're really good. I've had one or two.
We actually just brought, I don't know if you've been in the last 2 months or so, we brought on a new beef out of Colorado. It's a single ranch. We buy it directly from them. It's all grass-fed, but it's Wagyu beef.
Hey.
And we just started doing a Wagyu beef burger. We've got a couple of their cuts on the menu as well, and you could be eating a ribeye. It's insanely good meat.
I will see you for lunch soon.
I hope so, sir, and you will not be disappointed.
That sounds delicious.
It's Bourbon Steak. It's at the Four Seasons, right at the entrance to Georgetown here in Washington, D.C., for those of you who come to the nation's capital. And good luck with the House of Cards dinner, Chef. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to tweet out a link, by the way, so you can check out the House of Cards dinner at BP Show. Make sure you check us out there. We'll have the link.
Yeah, we've got to get some pictures of it up, too, whenever it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Chef, we'll see you over there.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You got it. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Chef Joe Palma from Bourbon Steak, Four Seasons Hotel.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
I have never felt so at ease as the day you called me precocious. I have never feared big words, only those that refuse to use them, and the syllables rolled off your tongue like honey. I was hooked. Language became our vein of communication, and I know that everybody uses language to communicate, but ours was different. As if in between the letters and the syllables there is a secret message only we could decipher. My days were filled with the sound of your voice, and your nights were littered with the loops of my handwriting. We exchanged our favorite words, mine being illuminated and yours being cattywampus. And our least favorites, mine moist and yours almost. And when I asked you why, you said it was because almost held failed potential, that it represented our ability to be just not good enough, that we had come to the brink of something beautiful but fell short so many times we crafted a word for it. But even we, with our supposed mastery of the English language, were not immune to the shortcomings of our vocabularies. Words can only help you if you speak them. I never told you that I loved you. You never told me that you were dying. 5 easy words that would have shattered our worlds. I love you, I think. I have a brain tumor. You know, still to this day, I don't know all the details because medical jargon has never fit right in my mouth. And even now, 5 years later, it feels like an invasion of your privacy. But I do know I have pored over our conversation, searching for the secret message you certainly tried to send me, and I am sorry. But I only almost found it. Salt water is not good for paper, and my tears warped your words. After some serious consideration, I've decided to change my least favorite word, because while moist is gross, malignant is malicious. Malignant is uncontrollable, means a phone call and the phrase, he didn't wake up. Malignant is messy and unfair and a thief. Malignant means I never got to say goodbye. Malignant is the cause of almost. Because you were on the brink of something beautiful, but you couldn't quite reach it, and you fell too far. I am so sorry I wasn't there to catch you. I hope your heaven is a library, and I hope it is void of almosts. Te amo, Daniel. Sleep well.
Y'all like that poem? Say hell yeah.
Service and the Ad Council.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go now at 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Wrapping up here on a Thursday on several fronts. Starting with a reminder, if you don't already have your own personalized signed copy of my latest book, Buyer's Remorse, How Obama Let Progressives Down. Your chance to get one. Remember, Bernie Sanders on the cover says, Bill Press makes the case. Read this book. We're talking about all the good things Obama has done and also the ways in which he has let progressives down. And let's be honest, he has on several issues. But you can get your signed copy by just going to our website, BillPressShow.com. Tell us how you want it signed, how you want it inscribed, and it is on its way to you as fast as we can get it there. We've talked about the Republicans' obstructionism on the new Supreme Court nominee. They say they won't have a vote, they won't even have a hearing, they won't even meet with whomever President Obama ends up nominating. And by the way, Republican Governor Brian Sandoval from Nevada is, White House confirms, one of the people that they are vetting for that possibility. But their obstructionism also applies to Gitmo, with the president coming out with a plan to shut down our naval prison there at the naval base in Guantanamo Bay. As Congress, by the way, required him to do by law, he comes forward with a plan. And now they say, no, we are not only not going to close it. Paul Ryan yesterday accusing President Obama of breaking the law.
This is against the law.
God.
And it will stay against the law. In fact, the president should rule out taking unilateral action to transfer Guantanamo Bay detainees to our shores.
I mean, I'm sorry. I thought Paul Ryan was smarter than that.
No.
I mean, come on.
No.
Who's he kidding? Right? I mean, he's better than that. Congress passed the law saying by February 23rd, 2016, the president had to present Congress with a plan for closing the prison at Guantanamo Bay. He did on February 23rd, and then Paul Ryan comes out and says, this is against the law. No, you passed the law, dummy. Maybe you forget, dummy. You passed the law, right. And if President Obama were to do this by executive order, says Paul Ryan, pitchforks. We'll come out with the pitchforks.
If the president proceeds with knowingly breaking the law and asking the military to break the law, he will be met with fierce bipartisan opposition here in Congress, and we are taking all legal preparations necessary to meet with that resistance.
Ho, 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 ho. Again, this is one more thing where they say, no, we are not going to do our job. Talked a lot about Mitt Romney and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio today. I haven't hardly brought you up to date at all on our two great Democratic candidates, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Bernie was in South Carolina yesterday having a little news conference where he talked about welfare reform, which did a lot of damage to people, particularly in the South Carolina, and he reminds us that he was against it. Hillary was for it.
I thought it was scapegoating people who were helpless, people who were very, very vulnerable. Secretary Clinton at that time had a very different position on welfare reform, strongly supported it.
And Bernie says, yep, she may have been inevitable at one time, but ain't no more.
Secretary Clinton was the inevitable candidate. She is not the inevitable candidate now. I think we've got a real shot to win it.
And a lot of that depends on how well he can do on Super Tuesday. Secretary Clinton, meanwhile, was in South Carolina. She stayed there while Bernie's been sort of hopping around the country. He was in Kansas City and Oklahoma City yesterday. He's been up in Massachusetts. He's been all over. He goes back to South Carolina tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hillary stayed in South Carolina. She wants to win big there. She said, I want to bring jobs back.
We've recovered jobs, but not enough. And we haven't really seen incomes rise. When it comes to incomes, I want to get back to where we were when my husband was president.
And Secretary Clinton got a big endorsement yesterday with Democratic leader Harry Reid in the wake of the Nevada caucuses, endorsing Secretary Clinton for President of the United States. And with that, we'll take a quick break. I'll be back with today's parting shot.
Your place to talk about the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
For my 6th birthday, my grandpa gave me a Rubik's Cube. I'll always be able to remember its edges, hold it in my hands, heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I remember him telling me about it. How Rubik's Cube has 43 quintillion, 252 quadrillion, 3 trillion, 274 billion, 489,856,000 possibilities. He told me it can be really confusing sometimes. But to look at the center squares as a reminder of what color each side should be. Shift. We're celebrating his 50th wedding anniversary. He and Grandma are dancing a dance that only fragile legs and wrinkled hands know how to. That type of happiness took him 70 years to earn. The white side of the cube is solved. Shift. He tells me about how he met Grandma. His college friends had a sunset picnic. She was there, as beautiful as an unsolved puzzle. She was a red-headed scramble on an orange tile sky. Shift. The walls of the hospital are blue. The nurses explain that his memories had become jumbled. Strangers in family portraits, pictures with mismatched faces. Alzheimer's has made his mind into a Rubik's Cube. Shift. He's a highway patrolman. His car is white. No, it's blue. He worked there for 30 years. Some nights he still does. Time is a complicated algorithm. Shift. The pills he holds are yellow and red and green. The weight of their color causes his hand to drop. I try to shift his tiles back into place, but people don't have center squares. His mind is a hospital bed divided by 0. Shift. My sister's wedding is white, but he doesn't know why. Shift. World War II is every color. The South Pacific is blue. The islands are green. There is so much red. Shift. Grandpa, table, cube, name, scramble, California, guitar, grapefruit highway, wedding bell, war, stick shift rifles, South Pacific mirrors. Shift, 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 shift. The temperature of his hands is blue. Death is colorless. I will always remember his edges. Hold him in my hands. Heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I was unable to attend his funeral. I never found out the algorithm to solve him. A Rubik's Cube has over 43 quintillion possibilities. A casket only has one.
And discover
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Are you ready for it? Republicans finally dropped their big bomb against Donald Trump yesterday. Yep, are you ready for it? Donald Trump was told to release his tax returns by Mitt Romney. Wait a minute. Mitt Romney accuses somebody else of not releasing his tax returns? Does he think we're stupid or forgetful? Just 4 years ago, it was Romney's refusal to release his own tax returns that got him in so much trouble and may have cost him the presidency. Romney did release his returns for 2010 and 2011, but refused to release any earlier returns, which led to all kinds of speculation. Remember? What was he hiding? Did he have money stashed away in the Cayman Islands? Harry Reid even suggested Romney had paid no taxes at all for the last 10 years. And back in 2012, by the way, who was the loudest voice demanding that Mitt Romney release his tax returns? None other than Donald Trump. So maybe Mitt Romney's just getting even, but he's not helping Mark Rubio. That's it for today, folks. Have a great Thursday. Come back and see us tomorrow.
This is the Bill Press Show.